The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and along the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" And Peter said to him in reply, "You are the Christ." Then he warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed and rise after 3 days. He spoke this openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. At this, he turned around and, looking at the disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Lord Jesus Christ.
Pax et bonum, my dear brothers and sisters. Peace and all good to you. We could enter into the exegesis of both readings, digging into its meaning in the actual context in which they were written. But it would not give us a great many insights other than what it speaks to us very plainly. The Gospel tells us that we ought to think as God does. We hear in the Gospel Jesus asking his disciples, "What's the popular opinion about me? What do surveys say about me?" And he gets different perceptions. He collects the perspectives of the people. And then Jesus goes straight to the point. But really, despite what other people think, who do you say I am? And now he is taking this personally. He is asking those people with whom he was traveling, those people whom he has called friends, those people whom he has been teaching private lessons other than those that he teaches publicly, have you been learning? And fortunately, Peter answers correctly, "You are Christ." However, when he further explains the consequences of what that means, Peter, if you realize, rebukes the Lord. Do you notice that? Pinagsabihan ni Pedro ang Panginoon. And so, Jesus, looking at the disciples, returns the favor and publicly rebukes Peter by saying the most beautiful line in the Gospel, "Get behind me, you obstacle to truth, because you are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." And this, therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, calls all of us to this important challenge from the Lord, that we, trained around his table, listening to his word, must learn to think as he does. We are free human beings. He, by his grace and love for us, has given us free will. But this was not given to us as a privilege to do whatever we want. As Christians who have been consecrated to him by baptism, he has challenged us to bring him to others. That we, while living in our lives here on earth, must act as he would have acted. And therefore, we must think as he thinks in order to act as he would have acted. The first consequence of this can be found in the adjunction of the first reading. Do not be partial. Just because somebody is rich and potentially powerful, don't treat him in any other special way than the poor. Because St. James reminds us, and this should be a cautionary tale for all those who are materially privileged, isn't the rich the one who always hails you in court? Isn't the rich who abuses power? Isn't the rich the one who can twist the law? Isn't the rich the one who could reinterpret what turpitude means? Diba? Isn't those in privilege the one who can blaspheme the Lord? Or those who are sent to lead you? It is the poor and the powerless the Lord loves because they have no one else but Him. And so, if you think as God does, you will love the poor. Not because you hate the rich, but because they need love more than the rich. Ultimately, my dear brothers and sisters, this will redound to our lives nowadays as we prepare to plan our next chapter in our social life, to think as God thinks, so that we may vote as God would have voted. That our votes and our choices would be something we can be proud of and tell the Lord in prayer, I believe in the fullness of my heart that this is the vote that you would have made. And I cast this as an act of faith. I have discerned this from principles in the gospel, not by personal principles, not by personal choices, not by personal preferences, not by my history or my geography, but by faith. And the vote I shall cast is a vote of faith. A vote I make not for myself, but in advancement of your will, O Lord. May the Lord not tell us to get behind Him. May the Lord affirm us by saying, my good and faithful servant, you have done well.